fragments and rambling run-ons. Let's talk about fragments first. So, before we can talk about fragments, we have to recap on what a complete sentence is. A complete sentence has a subject, it has a verb, and it expresses a complete thought. So what is a fragment? A fragment is a part or incomplete piece of a sentence. It's an incomplete sentence. It's missing one of these three criteria. So let's look at the sentence here. Bruce is afraid of pit bulls. This clearly is an independent clause or a complete sentence. Bruce is my subject, is afraid of pit bulls is my verb predicate. Let's look at this one. Bruce, the new mail carrier. Clearly I'm missing something. I have my subject and then I have this phrase, the new mail carrier, but I don't have any further information about him. Bruce, the new mail carrier, is what's called a fragment. So let's move on to run-on sentences. A rambling run-on sentence is defined as two sentences combined without any punctuation or combined with only a comma. VIP number 1 is the highest writing mistake in all of grammar writing. Typically, when a student or anyone writes something, a run-on sentence, 90% of the time is what you're going to see in their first or second drafts. Let's look at this one. I abhor tuna, but shrimp fills me with alacrity. So, I abhor tuna. That's an independent clause. Shrimp fills me with alacrity. That's another independent clause. So we're looking at what could be a correctly written compound sentence, but it's a run-on sentence because I do not have a comma before the coordinating conjunction but. So, there are 5 ways that you can spot a fragment. VIP number 2, I've created a little song for you. And if you click in the link below, you'll be able to hear the song. So let's look at the first way. The first way to spot a fragment very easily is that it's going to be missing a subject or a verb. Let's look at a couple. James, the shy, reluctant one. So clearly here, I'm missing a verb. I have my subject, James, the shy, reluctant one, but I don't have what James is doing. I just have information about my subject, James. Let's look at another one where it's missing a subject. Ran through the red light. Who ran through the red light? Why did you run through the red light? So clearly, I'm missing a subject here. And in this example, I'm missing a verb. The second way to spot a fragment is it literally is a dependent clause all alone. It is not connected to an independent clause. It's just sitting there in the paragraph by itself. While children are sleeping. And what? Can I get some more information? The third way to spot a fragment is the sentence contains an ing verb. So when I mean an ing verb, meaning all it has is just that ing type verb. So the sentence either starts with the ing verb or after a phrase, it has the ing verb in there. So for example, all the while twirling the baton with speed and ferocity. Well, who's twirling the baton with speed and ferocity? Or why are they twirling the baton with speed and ferocity? So, first 3 ways, missing a subject or a verb, a dependent clause, sentence with an ing verb. Those are the first 3 ways that you can spot a fragment. The fourth way to spot a fragment is the 2 plus verb formula. This is where a sentence begins or starts with a 2 plus verb. Now, this 2 plus verb combination is formally called an infinitive phrase. But let's not worry about that. Just know that when you see a sentence that starts with a to plus a verb, it's a fragment. So, where is Susie going? To break a piece of plywood with her bare hands. Okay. I clearly have my verb, which is to break, but who is breaking? Now, while this previous sentence tells me who is breaking the plywood with her bare hands, this sentence still is a fragment because this sentence has no subject. Where is Susie going? Susie is going to break a piece of plywood with her bare hands. And then last, the fifth and probably the second most common fragment mistake when writing is the afterthought. The afterthought is where you attempt to clarify any earlier information in a previous sentence. So you feel like that is in itself a complete sentence. So for example, such as leaving the stove on and teasing mean dogs. Okay, clearly that is some information that is meant to elaborate or be evidence for a previous sentence. However, because it is a sentence, it needs to have a subject and it needs to have a verb. So it needs to be connected to another independent clause. Now, for number 5, since it is the second most common, look for these type markers. Words like for example, especially, except, such as, and for instance. When you see sentences that start with these, those typically are a fragment. Unless you write it correctly, it's going to be considered a fragment. Now, there are just two, dos, do, ways to correct a fragment. The first way is to attach the dependent clause to an independent clause, or take the subordinate conjunction off altogether. The second way to fix a fragment is to add to the sentence what's missing. So if it's missing a subject and it just has a verb or an ing verb, add a subject. If it's missing, if it's just a sentence that's just talking about the who of the sentence, i.e. the subject, then you add the action, aka the verb. So let's do a couple. All right, in the first sentence it says, because Chase caught the eye of the beautiful brunette in algebra. Clearly this is spot fragment number 2, a dependent clause all along. So we have two ways of fixing this sentence. We can either add information about it. Because Chase caught the eye of the beautiful brunette, he failed the test. That's one way that we could fix this fragment. Or we could completely eliminate the subordinate conjunction because. So now we have Chase caught the eye of the beautiful brunette. Now my dependent clause has now become an independent clause because I eliminated the subordinate conjunction. All right, let's look at the first way. Let's look at another example using the dependent clause factor. The dependent clause here was until Rachel notices the paper stuck to her shoe. That is my dependent clause. So the second way that I can make this fragment a complete sentence is attach it to an independent clause. Everyone will keep laughing. Everyone is my subject. Will keep what? Laughing. Subject, verb, complete thought. This is my independent clause. Now, when we learned about complex sentences, we learned that a complex sentence is an independent clause combined with and connected to a dependent clause. So, until Rachel notices the paper stuck to her shoe, I need to make sure that I connect it to an independent clause, i.e., everyone will keep laughing until Rachel notices the paper stuck to her shoe. Now, keep in mind that in the original draft, this was an uppercase U. But because I connected it to an independent clause, I have to take that U and I have to make it lowercase. All right, let's look at way number 2, where you add to the sentence what's missing. So here was my fragment. To catch butterflies for her project. That's the to plus verb theory. All right, so I need to add a real verb and a subject. Allie chose to catch butterflies for her project. Now my fragment is now a complete sentence. Let's do one more. Hidden in the bureau drawer under a pile of socks. This looks like an afterthought, or AT. So I need to know, well, what is hidden in the drawer? Okay, the ring is. The ring is hidden in the bureau drawer under a pile of socks. So now my fragment is now a complete sentence, and my foolish fragment is no more.